I'd like to start with introductions for each of the organizations participating in today's webinar. I'll start with a quick introduction to Search Scuba as today's host for the webinar. Search Scuba was founded by divers for our fellow divers as a digital marketplace, and what we are is a marketplace that connects divers with top-rated certified dive shops around the world. Divers, our website serves as a dive shop directory to help divers find the best destinations and dives based on their skill level and experience. From cave diving to swimming with sea turtles, we provide a seamless way for divers to explore, discover, and book their next dive adventure. And for dive shops, we provide a free listing and marketing platform that allow dive shops to do more business and connect with divers looking for their next dive. With the impact that COVID-19 has had on tourism, travel, and traditional marketing sources like hotels and cruises being shut down, we think that our platform represents a unique solution for dive shops looking to connect with divers. And given the impact of COVID-19 on the dive industry, we wanted to do more than just be a marketing platform. And so today's webinar is all about educating divers and dive shops globally on what a new world looks like. And I'm really excited to have a tremendous lineup of industry experts to talk about that. And with that, I'm going to have my participants or my panel introduce themselves. And so, Michael, why don't you start us off with an introduction of yourself in depth?
Hi, I'm Michael Menduno. I'm editor-in-chief of GUE's online magazine called InDepth. I'm also a contributing editor with Dan Europe, an alert diver. Do some editing work with X-Ray magazine, and also a staff writer at deeperblue.com. And I'm in California.
Fantastic. We're excited to have you. Steve.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Lewis. I am the Global Director of Training for RAID, a dive agency. I've been diving for a few years, and I'm also a writer. And my field of expertise, if anything, or where I like to concentrate on, is diver safety. Always pushing for ways to make diving safer and more fun. That's it.
Dr. Matias, I know we can't see you, but I think we can hear you. It would be great to hear your introduction.
Thank you, Stephen. Hi, everybody. I'm Matias Nochetto. I have the privilege of being the Director for Medical Services at DAN, Divers Alert Network. And well, in my past life, I used to be a diving instructor. And well, I have the bright idea of combining two passions, diving and medicine. And I guess I'm one of the few that actually can live on diving medicine in some way.
We're excited to hear your perspective on how you blend those two passions, and I think particularly relevant. A lot of our viewers are really interested in diving safety and what that means in the new world. And finally, last but certainly not least, Tanya.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Tanya Amaya. I'm the programs manager for the Bay Islands for Coral Reef Alliance. It's very exciting for us to be in this webinar and to see that so many of you were able to join us for this conversation. I'll be just doing some storytelling of what's happening on the Bay Islands, and you will see how a lot of the elements that the other presenters talk about, what do they look like on the field, and how it has affected, well, the whole COVID pandemic, the impact it had on a diving destination. So thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So Michael, I'm going to turn to you first to kick us off and talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 to the dive industry. I know that both in your role in depth and just through GUE's partners, you have a good broad perspective, and it'd be great to hear what you're hearing, what you're seeing through your conversations with experts in the dive industry.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Yeah, so I thought I'd start maybe just kind of reviewing where we've been this last 6 months, where we are now, and where it looks like we're heading. I had an opportunity in March and April to do some research and write a piece with Stephen Whelan, the publisher of deeperblue.com, and it was called "The Day the Diving Stood Still." And so I just kind of like to remind everyone how we got here. So in January, a number of the international brands started seeing a fall off of business in China and Asia. Then that spread, of course, to Europe and the Americas. And in March, late February, March, pretty much everybody locked down. So it was a pretty dramatic impact. This is probably everyone in the audience remembers. There was a survey, actually, Dive Center Business did a survey of retailers, and it was really pretty dramatic. 43% had just closed their doors, another 2/3 had canceled training, 90% had canceled travel, and revenue was very marginal at that point. Dive resorts and liveaboards were very hard hit because travel shut down. I was speaking with Dan Johnson, the owner of Oceana, a big liveaboard out of PNG, and he said, the real challenge is going to be cash flow because their business just stopped. And it was really amazing to see the response of the dive industry. A number of companies joined in the fight to help fight COVID. People like working on ventilators, people like DiveSoft, AP Diving, NARC at 90. A number of people came out with masks and PPE to protect health workers like Santee and Ocean Reef Group, Maris, etc. So that was a big thing. As you probably noticed, the whole industry went online. There was suddenly, 4 webinars a day and talks and a plethora of diving content. It was interesting because obviously dive shows just ceased for the time being, and they still are. But we got to see each other online, so that was big. And a number of agencies, RAID opened up their online learning platform, Patty and DEMA started offering a bunch of business webinars to help people. A big source of relief where available was government loans and assistance to get through these times. So, and the DAN the DAN groups continued to operate, and I just lost my screen. There you are. Oh, thank you. Shoot, I was worried. So, everyone is really locked down and preparing for long-term disruption, I think. So where we are now, things have begun to reopen. I know in GUE, kind of looking out, we're starting to see, well, and I should say, we put out, following the recommendations from the various DAN organizations, put out safety recommendations for diving and doing things, courses, etc. in this time of COVID, including mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing, not doing sharing regulators, all of that. So we've seen an uptick, GUE has seen an uptick in Europe, certainly Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, UK is starting to come back. In the US, the story is really mixed because we are really hurting badly and the pandemic is really out of control. But we're seeing local diving, I'm going to come back to local, in Florida, some in California, some in the Great Lakes, whereas landlocked states like Colorado, some areas like that, that depended highly on travel, we're seeing less diving. And then the parts of Asia, we're seeing things come back too. I was talking to a number of manufacturers, China, Taiwan and Korea in particularly. Interesting for the tech audience out there, there's been a global shortage of oxygen sensors for rebreathers. These have all been diverted for medical use, for ventilators, etc. So probably a lot of people out there have old expired cells. Please don't dive them if they're over 12 months old. Thank you,
Michael.
Audience out there, right? So, and really international travel has been, for the most part, shut down. Many countries are on either lockdown or you have to quarantine to get in. So again, resorts, liveaboards, places like Thailand, the Philippines, Fiji, Solomon are really hurting bad. And I think the pandemic has really exposed the kind of underlying structure of diving, which is hugely travel related. So, so I was speaking to some of our friends at Fourth Element, Jim Standing, the founder. He said, well, really, it's a tale of two cities. That's what we're seeing, the reference to Charles Dickens. So locally, what's happening now is local diving has started up again. And much of this is in cold climates. So Fourth Element, for example, is selling out of dry suits right now for people who are used to warm water. And then the other city is warm water, the warm water destinations. And many of these are on lockdown right now. So I think the idea is to kind of think global and dive local, if you will. I had a great talk the other day, yesterday actually, with Craig Stevens, the CEO of Mike Ball Expeditions, and looking at the Great Barrier Reef. And I think they're a good example. They've, up till now, 90% of their business was all travel-based, international travel. Well, you can't get into Australia right now. It's locked down. And even within the states, because some states like Queensland with Cairns and the Great Barrier Reef is relatively pandemic-free, other areas are suffering. So there's no travel within Australia. What Mike Ball has done, he had a great quote. He said, "We have to adapt if we are to survive," which I think is a good message for diving. So they've focused now all their marketing on local diving, getting people to come. They're opening it up for families, putting kayaks on the liveaboards, offering tri-dives for new people. The idea is like, do your staycation with us, come down. And another good thing happening on the Great Barrier Reef, I think, which is well, two things. Number one, the reefs he's telling me are spectacular because they're not overrun with people. I think Tanya's going to talk a little more about that when she talks. And there's a lot of cooperation within the industry. The dive boats are all going out. They are taking local people out to the reefs, and they're divvying it up. So every operator gets 2 days of business during the week, so that everybody is maintains and no one's going to go out of business. So I think the dive industry is really working together to help each other so we can stay alive and satisfy the needs and desires of divers now locally and at some point internationally. And I think the outlook is, in talking to people, that this year is pretty much, as far as travel and that, is gone. There's not going to be any dive shows. It's questionable whether the dive shows at the beginning of the year, like the boat show and Go, are really going to come off. Don't know. We really need to get the pandemic under control before we can have large groups. So people are, it's taking longer than we might have imagined. So that's kind of where we are right now.